welcome to this week's episode of TRUUU Podcast. I'm your host, Alex.
And I'm your host, Drea.
Welcome back to, what is this now, Season 3?
Season 3.
Season 3, our 1 week break.
I know. Big deal. But new things are coming this season, though, as we promised.
Yeah, we're going to try out some new things, so hopefully you're excited about that. Hopefully you enjoy it. You know, see how it goes.
We'll see how it goes, indeed.
Give us that feedback, man, on our Insta. Anyway, so as our recent always, at least, we're going to start out with our week updates because I feel like, at least for me, I've been doing a lot. So I think we have some stuff to talk about. So Drea, how's your week been?
My week's been okay. I probably don't have as much to talk about as you, but I did do a few things this past week. So I went to Disneyland. Well, I didn't go to Disneyland. I went to California Adventure, Disney's California Adventure.
Right.
And that was quite the excursion. So we went on a Tuesday and I went with my friend Duke, my former boss, as I've mentioned on this podcast. And he's like a Disney fanatic. So he's definitely like on top of, like, how do I even say this? Okay. So like basically long story short, like they just opened Avengers Campus and there's like a new ride on it called like Web Slingers or whatever. And to get on the ride, like you can't just walk on the ride. Like you have to like get in a queue on the app and like get a boarding pass to get on the ride.
Okay.
And so they only open the queue up twice a day. And so if you don't get it, like you're not going on the ride.
Oh, that sucks.
So he was like doing a ton of research on like how to make sure that you get it, you know? And he was like sending me videos and it was like this girl like saying like, okay, like 15 minutes before like 7 a.m. you have to like restart your phone, like close all your apps and then like have the app open and like refresh every, like the second it turns 7, like refresh and like join the boarding group or whatever. And
restart
so here,
make your human sacrifice, you know?
Yeah, literally. It's like spin around 3 times, clap your hands, like literally. So we're like going in the car to Disneyland because he's like, I want to get there when it opens and I want to leave when it closes. And I'm just like,
it's a big day.
I was definitely like, I mean, I'll try, but chances are I'm gonna like peace out early. Like I'll have Aaron come pick me up, you know, and I like told him ahead of time. I was just like, I'm not committing to a whole day. Anyway, so we're on the way to Disneyland. I have like the phone open. The girl in the back, she's like literally on like the world clock app and she's like checking you know like the time or whatever and like telling me like, okay, like 1 second, 2 seconds, whatever. The second it turns 8 o'clock, like the second it turns, or 7 o'clock, sorry, the second it turns 7 o'clock, she tells me, I refresh it, I join the boarding group, and like literally there was probably like 1 extra second that happened between her telling me and me doing it, and we're already in like boarding group 55.
Oh Lord.
And I was like, how we got it, but I was like, how? And so like we didn't get to go on it till like midday, which is fine, but I was just like, oh my God, like this isn't impossible. Like basically if you're not ready the second it opens, you're not going on this ride.
Right. Yeah.
So it was really cool. So have you been on Toy Story Mania before, or like Buzz Lightyear's ride? Okay. Yeah. You know how it's like guns and like a 3D screen, you like shoot at it, whatever. So Web Slingers is kind of like that, but instead of having a gun, you literally just use your hands and you like shoot webs with your hands like this, and like the screen registers your body movement and like the screen shoots like where you're pointing.
Oh, that's crazy.
Yeah, it's like I was like, future technology. So it was really cool. Like it was a cool ride, but like it was, my shoulders were dying afterwards. Like I was like, 'cause, you know, shooting so fast, like I was dying. But it was fun regardless. I also went on, and you're gonna be so proud, Alex, because you know I don't like it. I went on Guardians of the Galaxy for the first time.
So I'm a little bit salty because like a couple years ago, and we may have mentioned this before on the podcast, but a couple years ago we went to Knott's Berry Farm together and you wouldn't go on Supreme Screen with me.
Yeah.
And this is basically the equivalent to doing that at Disney. So I'm just kind of like, I'm happy for you, proud of you, but also, dude, TFTI.
Okay, but here's the thing. Are you really missing out? Because that was the last ride I did. And then I was like, I'm leaving. Like, I'm like, I feel sick. I'm done. I'm at my wit's end. I'm done with it. So
And what time was that at?
okay, so that was at probably like around 7. It's probably around
See,
7.
that's like 12 hours or whatever, at the park or something. That's a good
Yeah.
day. That's a solid day. Like, I think that's probably a rational time to just call it quits anyway.
It was like it was almost too much. Like it was almost
Mm-hmm.
going too long. But I was like, I'm gonna try to troop it out for as long as possible. But here's the thing, it was so hot. And on top of that, like nobody was wearing their masks. They were at full capacity. And I was like, hell no, with this Delta variant. So I was like wearing my mask the whole time. It's hot. Like I was dying. And
Mm-hmm.
so by the time 7 rolled around, I was like, okay, I can no longer like, be a team player. I'm piecing out. So I
Mm-hmm.
call Aaron. He gets there like maybe 30 minutes later. And we leave around like 7:45.
Mm-hmm.
And when we leave, there's like no traffic, nobody's leaving the park, not a big deal. Like I was like, okay, this is awesome. Um, and I kind of felt bad because the park closed at 9 and I was basically leaving at 8. And so I was like, oh, there's like 1 more hour. Like maybe I could have just stuck it out. But I was like, like whatever, I don't want to. It's fine.
Nah.
So I left. And then the next day, Duke calls me and he's just like, oh my God. He was like, honestly, like you made the right call because I guess like they stayed there until closing, rode Guardians another time or something like that, or rode Incredicoaster another time. I don't know. They left after closing, left with like all these people, all this traffic. They get in the car, they're driving home. Like one of the girls is like, hey, can we get like food at In-N-Out, whatever? And he's like, okay. So he goes to In-N-Out. He's tired. The girls who are with him, like they're like younger than us. They're like in college. And
Mm-hmm.
so like they're like high energy, like screaming in the car. He's literally sitting in the driver's seat, like, oh my God, like I'm over it. Like when you're so
Right.
tired and people are being loud, you're just like,
Yeah.
shut up. And so
Mm-hmm.
he's like over it. The In-N-Out line takes like 45 minutes.
Ooh.
They finally get their food, go home, and he texts me and he's like, I barely got home at 11:50 at night. I was
Yikes.
like, oh no, I made the right call.
Oh, absolutely. Well, 12 hours was enough time. It's plenty of time, especially considering that, we're all California natives. So, like, getting to the park, obviously, like, the park has been closed for a while and that's been that. So it's exciting to go back. But at the same time, like, you have opportunity to go.
Yeah, like it was unfortunate that they don't have like the season passes. So like
Yeah.
I feel like that was a little bit more reason I felt like, oh, I need to get my money's worth out of it, da 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 da.
Right.
Versus if I had a pass, I'd be like, let's go for like 5 hours and then leave.
Mm-hmm.
But it was fun regardless. That was really cool. And like to touch on Avengers Campus a little bit more, they had some really cool things. Like they had like a sanctum where like Doctor Strange comes out of, and it's really
Mm-hmm.
sick. They have like an animatronic Spider-Man that flies through the air, and like it's sick because you don't even know it's animatronic. Like you just think it's the actual like actor. They also have like a PIM particles like lab or whatever. It's like,
Okay.
and they like serve food and there's like a whole bar and like it's sick. So like
Mm-hmm.
Avengers Campus, 2 thumbs up for me. I think it's cool. I hope that they incorporate more rides though. Okay. That was my spiel on Disneyland. And then just one other thing that was significant that I did this past week. I went down and I visited my friend Danielle, who's been a guest on this podcast before in San
Saw
Diego.
that on your Instagram story. That must have been fun.
It was really fun. I went over on Friday, stayed the night till Saturday. On Friday we like went out, had lunch, and then she wanted to take me to this bar, but like because they had happy hour or something, but like it was like an hour later. So we're like, okay, let's pass the time, da da da. So we're just like kind of walking around North Park. That's where we were, and like going into little stores or whatever. And we go into, and when we were like eating, Danielle had told me, she was like, hey, do you watch 90 Day Fiance? And I was like, no.
That show is absurd, by the way.
Yeah, I know. I was like, no, I do not watch 90 Day Fiance. She's like, oh, but do you know who Big Ed is? And I'm just like, yes, I know who Big Ed is from all the memes. How can you not know? So she's like, oh, he lives in North Park. Like, apparently sometimes people see him. And I was like, oh, that's funny. And she's like, yeah, Hector, her like boyfriend. She's like, yeah, Hector's seen him before, but like, I've never run into him. And I'm like, oh, well, la-di-da, whatever. So we're literally talking about that. Then we like go to the stores, go to another one, and then like backtrack to like another store. And when we backtrack, we're just like, oh, like what's this random store? Let's just go in it. And we go in the store, and as we're in that store, we look out the door, and Danielle's like, oh my God, that's Big Ed. And he was literally standing right there at the door entrance. And we were like, we manifested this into the universe right now.
I feel like you're gonna have to send me a meme of that because like I don't know who you're talking about.
Yes, you do, Alex. It's the guy who like has literally no chin. Like it's just neck to head, and he's like short and fat.
You'll have to send it to me.
Oh, Alex.
I don't doubt you. I probably have seen something before with him in it, but I'm just like nothing is coming to mind right now.
Okay, I'll send you it. But like, yeah, he's nasty. And like, so we saw him. We're like, oh, I like put him on my story. I was like, I'm dead. Anyway, so then like we went to the bar. We had some drinks. It was really fun. We caught up on like a bunch of things. And then that night, I started forcing her to watch. I started forcing her to watch that one documentary that I only had you watch the last episode of because you came over when we were watching the last episode. But The Last Dance, the Jordan documentary.
Oh right, yeah.
And she was like throwing a fit. She was like, I don't want to watch this. I don't like basketball. I don't like sports. Da 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 da. And I was like, but it's not even about the same spiel I gave you. I was like, it's not even about basketball. It's just so good. And her boyfriend, who had like started seeing the documentary and then stopped because like I don't know why, he was like, no, like Danielle, it's good. Like da da da. And we were saying how like Jordan's like universally loved, so she has to like him and all this stuff, and it was funny. And so she like starts watching it, and then like one thing leads to another. We're like 5 episodes in and like one go, and she's like, okay, I need to know what happens. I'm like, I told you. So that was fun. Spent the night, and then the next day she did like a lot of like self-care appointments. So like I was like following her around. She like got a spray tan because today's her birthday, and so she's like going to Mexico, and so like that was fun.
Happy birthday, Danielle.
Happy birthday, Danielle! Well, I mean, when this comes out, it won't be her birthday, but when...
Well, I mean, if she listens to it, this is my way of telling her because I don't think I have her number, so...
Oh, okay, yeah, well, she'll hear it. But yeah, that was pretty much it. I just visited my friend. I've been in quarantine since because I've been around people and I don't want to, like, spread any unnecessary germs, so me and Aaron have been sleeping separately, and I've been, like, wearing my mask in my own house, so that's been interesting. But yeah, what's going on with you, Alex? You've had a busy week too.
Yeah, I've had quite the busy week. So let me think back where I should start here. So last Wednesday, I went to Medieval Times with Michael and some of his friends. I was meeting some of his friends for the first time.
Uh-huh.
And I'd never been to Medieval Times before. I'd been to the pirate counterpart that they have like across the street.
Yeah. And which is really funny because you went to the pirate counterpart with an ex-boyfriend, and now you went to Medieval Times with Michael.
Yeah, I know. What's
up with your boyfriends taking you to these like themed restaurants?
I will say, I think that in this case, it was one of his friends that wanted to go to Medieval Times because like they're down visiting from Sacramento, I believe.
Okay, that's such a specific, like, I don't know, okay. No shade, because, like, I've never been in Medieval Times. I'm sure it was really cool. But, like, that's such a random place to want to go when you're visiting.
One thing that I don't think that you typically appreciate, well, that you would appreciate about Medieval Times is, like, they really get into, like, the theme of it, right? So, you're eating your entire meal, so, like, it's, you know, a couple courses. So, there's soup in, like, a little bowl thing, and then chicken with some sides and a dessert, but for the most part you're eating it all with your hands.
Oh God, no!
There's no utensils.
No. That is a big X on my places to go.
I thought that it would be for you. It's not that way at the pirate one.
Okay, but at the Medieval Times specifically.
I don't remember it at least being that way at the pirate one, which I've been to that one at least twice.
No, I would, if anything, I would take my own utensil set.
Yeah, so like, you know, part of it is like roasted chicken, so you're literally like tearing it apart and stuff. Yeah. So that's really funny.
Interesting.
What was really hilarious to me was that like, so we're sitting in like kind of the nosebleeds, I guess, of that area, which they're not like nosebleeds, and I would say like there's only like, I don't know, 8 rows or something, so it's not like that far away from like the main arena area, which you're basically watching a bunch of like horse tricks and stuff. Like they're jousting, like that's the main event basically, is jousting, seeing which knight, you know, is the top knight or whatever. Yeah. Got it. And it turns out we discover pretty quickly as the horses come out that Michael remembers he's allergic to horses.
Oh my God. Okay. Go on.
So he's like,
It's a random allergy.
well, he's allergic to cats too. I mean, he's allergic to some animals, I guess.
Oh, that's unfortunate.
I felt really bad for him. Like, I would pass him like my napkins and stuff because he was having.
He was having a whole fit.
Yeah.
Jeez.
I mean, it was fun though. It was really cool, and meeting his friends was cool. They were all really nice people.
Mm-hmm.
So that's really fun. So that was a good night. And then the next day I left for Oregon. So Thursday to Sunday I was in Oregon, which was really fun. I got to visit my friend from high school, Sarah, and then so we started out, she picked me up in Portland because I flew into Portland. We actually had some ramen in Portland, which made me happy because like the night before you would hit me up for ramen. I'm just kind of like, my dude, killing me.
We actually didn't even get ramen that night, but I did get it like 2 nights ago or yesterday. I got it yesterday from Aji-san too.
I'm gonna kill you.
Okay, sorry. Continue with your Oregon story.
I'm so salty with you right now. Anyway, so got some ramen in Portland and then drove out to Corvallis, which is where she lives. So that's like a couple of hours away from Portland. It's the college town where Oregon State University is actually. That's where she works. And I'll tell you what, Oregon is beautiful.
Oregon is beautiful. I've been there. It's amazing.
It's a lot too hippy dippy for me.
Oh, well, anything is hippy dippy for you, Alex.
That's not completely true. I think that I have a certain like level of tolerance.
Threshold.
Yeah, I have a threshold.
You're like, LA, it's enough.
Yeah. So yeah, that was fun. Hanging out in Corvallis. We went to Newport, which is a little beach town.
Okay.
That was really cool because like Oregon coast is a lot different than California coast because basically, you know, the forest ends and then there's the sand sort of deal.
Mm-hmm.
So like that's really cool. Although the area that we were at in Newport wasn't exactly like that. Like I went over these sand dunes, but the thing is like I wasn't thinking, I guess, like when I got dressed for that day and I was wearing tennis shoes.
Okay.
I was wearing my Adidas like to the beach.
That was probably a bad choice.
Right. So like we're hiking through these dunes whenever to get to like the beach, and I'm just kind of like, oh, this isn't working. I'll just take off my shoes. And I'll tell you what, the sand was burning.
Oh God, I hate
burning my feet.
Yeah.
So eventually we make it out to over the dunes to like the actual beach area, and like we basically like fast walk to the water because at this point like the sand is really burning our feet.
Mm-hmm.
And the ocean down here is cold, but the ocean up there is really cold.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So like you're only able to stay in that for a certain amount of time, although like with the way that their like waves and like currents are, like there's some like standing water with like some kind of like raised sand in the middle. So like the standing water actually is a little bit warmer because it's been warmed by the sun.
Mm-hmm.
But one really freaky thing that I was observing that Sarah had pointed out to me, which I kind of wish she hadn't, because then I was like really fixated on afterwards, especially like how how I feel about the ocean. So there's that.
Uh-huh.
But like she's like, oh yeah, so you see every time the waves come in, it looks like it's bringing in rocks, but those aren't rocks, those are sand crabs.
Oh, okay.
So like not just like 5 sand crabs, it's like 15 sand crabs.
Oh no. I would be like, okay, I'm good.
So yeah, like as the waves are coming into the shore, like you could see the sand crabs like in the water, and they're like probably the size of like a $50 coin.
Mm-hmm.
They're bigger than any sand crabs I've ever seen.
I mean, as soon as like creatures are involved with the ocean, I'm like, I'm out.
Right. So the good thing is like, you know, as the water like kind of thins out a little bit, like they're just diving into the sand, so it's not like they're all over you or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But I was like, yeet thyself away from me.
That's funny.
I want no part of the sand crabs.
Feel that.
We eventually go back to the car, and my feet were pretty toasty by the end of that.
Mm-hmm.
Like I'm a little bit concerned that I was gonna have blisters. Actually,
oh God, did you?
No, I didn't. It turned out to be just fine. I did Okay, so this is one trend that I've been keeping an eye on for a while, and I wasn't sure how I felt about it, but ended up participating in it when I was there.
Oh no.
I bought 2 pairs of Birkenstocks.
Oh, okay. I have literally been hovering over purchase in my like Birkenstock cart.
Yeah, dude.
So I am with you actually. I am like this close to pulling the trigger on purchasing some.
Here's the thing, and this is not to dissuade you at all, because from what every Birkenstock wearer tells me, like they swear like their firstborn child's life upon it, basically.
Uh-huh.
That they're the most like comfortable shoes you'll ever wear.
Uh-huh.
However, you have to really invest in breaking them in.
Yeah. I mean like
Like
any other leather shoe.
I would say to an even greater point, really.
Really?
Have you ever tried them on?
No.
Dude, listen to this. So, like it already kind of like has ridges in it because like, I was looking at them in the store and I was kind of like testing out like the sole of it and whatever. Like it's really firm. It is
Mm-hmm.
super firm.
Mm-hmm.
So like when you first put them on, it feels like you're standing on rocks.
Oof.
And the whole point of it is that like you wear them for like maybe an hour or whatever
Mm-hmm.
for like 2 weeks and it molds to your foot.
Oh, okay.
Ends up making it super comfortable.
Mm-hmm.
In the meanwhile, it's
It's
kind of
misery.
painful.
Yeah, totally. How does it compare to breaking in rainbows?
I had never had rainbows actually.
I just broke in a pair of rainbows and let me tell you, it was not fun.
Right. So I imagine that it probably is something like that, if not maybe a little bit worse.
Okay.
Because like that was particularly uncomfortable for me. One thing that apparently is a pro tip for this whole situation is to wear socks while you're breaking them in.
Oh, that makes sense. Yeah, that way your like foot's not chafing against the leather.
Yeah, or else you might get blisters if you wear them for too long.
Yeah, that was an issue I had with my rainbows.
Which I'm just kind of like, that's a pretty high cost for breaking in a shoe, I feel. But then I
Mm,
guess I can't really criticize because I bought 2 pairs.
yeah.
Because I couldn't decide between 2 colors that I wanted.
What are they? What like what's the style? Can you explain it or not really?
I feel like they're the, pretty typical ones that have like the 2 buckle things going across,
Yeah.
straps. So I got the synthetic ones. I didn't want to get the leather or the pleather ones, mostly because I feel like, with how hot it gets down here, like that kind of makes like the material kind of like too pliable, I feel.
I feel that.
And then, what if it like rains or something or I step in a puddle? Like I don't want to deal with that with leather or pleather. Or
Sure.
not leather, not pleather, suede. Sorry. I
Yeah.
don't
Oh,
want to deal with that
suede.
with
Yeah.
motion.
I wanted the suede
So
ones, but
I ended up getting the synthetic and it looks pretty good.
Mm.
You can also actually get vegan ones.
Ooh, that's interesting. Love that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
But
sorry, go ahead.
that's just an option. That's
Oh,
what I was going to say.
I was just gonna say really fast. My cousin Sarah,
Mm-hmm.
she is, a
Yeah,
mountainous
I know.
person.
I
And
know, Sarah.
every time that I'm like, oh, I think I want to get Birkenstock, she's like, stop. Don't get Birkenstocks, get Tevas. I'm just like, but they're ugly.
Yeah. Actually, that was like one of the things that my friend was like, because we were talking about like how we need to like get better shoes or whatever for like beachy
Mm.
sort of things like that. Like I call them adventure sandals.
Uh-huh.
And she's like, oh yeah, like me and my boyfriend, we just got Tevas and whatever. So like you should look into those. That's actually why we're in the store, but then we ended up getting distracted by Birkenstocks.
Yeah.
Well, because what I want are Chacos.
Oh, tacos. Oh, yeah, my cousin's also about tacos.
Yeah, I would rather have those than the other ones, but they didn't have a good selection of either really. So I was looking at
Mm.
Birkenstocks instead. So I ended up kind of getting like this grayish, like brown color, which is pretty cute. And then I ended up getting white. So like
Ooh,
the accents
interesting
and like
choice.
stuff in white. And I'm just kind of like, it looks really good. And like my friend and the saleswoman were just like, yeah, that totally goes with your style.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just like, man, they're gonna get so dirty so fast.
Yeah, they are. But I mean, just take care of them. It'll be fine.
Yeah, so I've already started breaking in one pair, but I haven't started in on the white pair yet. But also, it's only been a couple days. I'm just kind of like, I think breaking in 2 pairs is going to be a little bit difficult.
It's gonna take a while for sure.
So I'll probably just focus on the one first, find the
Sounds like
best way to
fun.
do it, and then do the white ones. But anyway, so did that. Yeah, just went out, kind of taking the sights, all that stuff. The trees
Mm-hmm.
up there are really beautiful, and they're, a lot different than what we have around here. So it's really cool to see. Really just got a good chance to catch up with a friend because Sarah and I, since we graduated, haven't had an extended amount of time to spend together. Like just like dinner or lunch here or there, really. So got to, spend an extended period of time together. I got to meet her boyfriend, and he's really cool. And got to see my friend Amanda from high school as well, which I hadn't seen her since her wedding 5 years ago. And before that, hadn't seen her for a couple years, like for another 4 years since we had graduated from high school. So got to, spend some time with her as well, which is really cool. She lives right outside of, well, she lives in Portland technically, but it's like outside of the downtown like suburb, the downtown like big city area. She more lives in the suburbs. Got to meet her child as well, her son.
Aw, cute.
Super cute. Yeah. And he's just like about a week older than my nephew, so that was cool. Then came back to California and have been busy ever since with work because all the new job stuff to do. So it's been a crazy time and super busy, but it's a good kind of busy.
Absolutely, yeah. New is better than nothing.
Right, absolutely. And then I have some exciting stuff coming up. Actually, I'm going to that Dodgers game that I think I told you about before.
Fun.
And then on Saturday, we're celebrating my nephew's first birthday.
Oh my gosh, how time flies.
I know, because his birthday's actually on Friday.
Okay, celebrating on Saturday.
But celebrating on Saturday. And I'll tell you what, on Sunday he learned how to walk.
Oh my god. Hitting little milestones.
I've only seen the video of it, so I haven't seen him walk in person yet.
Right.
But I'll be seeing it, I imagine.
I love it. That's so cute.
So yeah, it's crazy to think that he's walking already. I'm just kind of like, you were born yesterday, please stop.
Oh, that's cute. I'm happy for you.
Yeah, thanks. Ugh. He's such a great kid. But anyway, so we can move on to the meat of this podcast because I feel like we spent a minute like we usually do on the week update. So
it's like an hour, just week update.
Right. Drea, take it away.
Okay, guys. So as we said, season 3, we want to incorporate some new fun little things. So one of the things that we're trying to do is like basically one of us will pick a topic and enlighten the other person on the topic through the podcast.
Okay.
So drum roll. The topic we are talking about today, Alex, is who killed JFK?
Oh, okay. Yeah, I mean, that's definitely something I don't know anything about, so I couldn't even begin to speculate. So here we go.
Here we go. Okay.
Tell me the whole thing.
Okay, so I'm going to start off by giving you some background, which obviously if you're anyone who's anyone in America, you should know basics, but let me go into a little bit of detail. Okay, sure. So on November 22nd in 1963, shortly after 12 p.m. noon, JFK was shot as he rode through a motorcade in Dallas, Texas, the downtown area. I think it's called Dealey Plaza. They were preparing for his next presidential campaign, and he was confident that he was going to win re-election in 1964. So this was part of his initiative to regain like the Texas vote, because I think it was like not great.
Okay. Campaign trail. Sure.
Campaign trail, exactly. So they use the tour to focus on themes of like education, national security, and world peace, which is ironic. And then when they were in his car, he was driving in a Lincoln that had a top, but I think it was like a removable, like it was a convertible. So when they were driving, the top was down. His wife, Jackie Kennedy at the time, now Jackie Onassis, was with him. And they had just lost their baby Patrick in August. So this is November. So they had literally just lost their baby like a month or two prior. August, September, October, 2-3 months prior. I don't know. Anyways. And here's the thing. So while they were there had been a group of extremists, like vocally, that contributed to political tensions in Texas. And like the month prior, the U.S. ambassador to the United Nations named, oh God, I don't know if I'm going to say this right, Adlai Stevenson was attacked physically by them. And he had told Kennedy, hey, don't go. And so Kennedy went. Gunfire ensued as the motorcade passed the Texas School Book Depository, and he was hit in the back of the neck. and his head slumped forward in reaction to being hit in like the throat. And that's when he was shot in the head.
Right, yeah.
And so like one of those bullets like went through him. I think it was the neck one, went through him and actually hit the governor of Texas who was sitting behind him.
Mm.
And so after this happened, nothing could really be done. Like literally it was just like a one
Yeah.
or well, two and done, I guess, shot.
Yeah.
And they called a Catholic priest to administer the last rites. And at 1 p.m. he was pronounced dead. And so fun fact, JFK was the first Catholic president.
The first
and then
one?
Biden's the second. So that's wild.
Really? Those are the only two?
Yeah, that's the only two.
Interesting.
Yeah. Anyway. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Well, because like you point out, right, that like, you know, most Americans know about this in some sense, like just from, you know, being alive, I guess.
Knowledge, yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm sure they probably like maybe teach on it in like history classes. I know that, you know, like our parents were around that time, or like our aunts and uncles and stuff were around that time. So like that's, you know, who really remembers it. Because I think I remember like in a history class, like one project we had to do is like we had to like ask some living relative that we had, like what were they doing when JFK got assassinated or whatever.
Oh, really?
Something like that. It was like one of those big things.
That would be a very challenging thing for me to do if I was like in that class, because my dad had been in the United States for 1 year when this occurred, and my mom was not in the United States. So like nobody in my family would be here.
Well, to, you know, lend some, you know, something else to that, my dad would have been 3 years old and my mom wasn't even born.
Geez, yeah. But at least you'd have relatives. Like all my relatives are in Mexico, so I wouldn't even have anybody.
Yeah. Yeah.
But anyway.
I mean, yeah, I had aunts who were old enough to probably remember that.
Yeah.
But
anyway,
yeah, so
okay.
I didn't know about the kid though.
Yeah. So I'm gonna get into it more, but this is just this first section is just like background information, mere facts. Right. I have 2 more or like 3 more little things to say, and then we can discuss further. But okay, so the governor who was shot, or not shot, but like the bullet hit him while it went through Kennedy, he recovered. Right. LBJ, Lyndon B. Johnson, who was vice president, he took office at 2:38 p.m. So he took the oath like very shortly after. Right. And then less than an hour earlier, the police less than an hour earlier from, I think, LBJ being sworn in, Lee Harvey Oswald was arrested by police for quote unquote, well, actually, I'll get into that in a minute, but Lee Harvey Oswald was arrested. Okay. Any comments, questions before we move on? Well, I mean, you commented on the amount of time like it took between, you know, when he died and when LBJ was sworn in, but I'm just like, I feel like that, you know, makes sense. Like that's like one of the main duties of the vice president should something happen to the president, just like, hey man, you're next. Yeah, I mean, like it makes sense. Like we can't go without a president, you know, but it's still like, Jesus, like we didn't even have a minute to breathe. Right. I mean, yeah. So I don't know. Was he in the state at the time? So LBJ was actually in the motorcade with JFK. He was in a few cars behind. Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, if it's on the campaign trail, I feel like the vice president wouldn't be that far behind. Yeah. Anyway. Okay. Continue. Thank you. So I'm now going to give a little bit of background on Lee Harvey Oswald. Sure. So he was a former U.S. Marine. He was placed in juvenile detention at the age of 12 for truancy. And a psychiatrist dubbed him emotionally disturbed for lack of a normal family life. Not great things. So he supposedly shot Kennedy from the 6th floor of the Texas School Book Depository. 45 minutes later from when Kennedy was shot, a Dallas police officer, J.D. Tippit, on the street ran into a movie theater and arrested. Oh, I'm sorry. Let me start that over. So 45 minutes after JFK was shot, a police officer in Dallas, J.D. Tippit, like confronted Oswald on the street, and Oswald shot him, killed him, and then ran into a movie theater where he was then arrested for that police officer's murder. So he wasn't originally arrested for JFK's murder. He was arrested for that officer's murder. And so while they arrested him, then he was charged for JFK's murder. 2 days later, he was shot by a local nightclub owner, Jack Ruby, on live television in the basement of the Dallas Police headquarters and died. So that is a lot to take in all at once. What are your initial thoughts coming into this?
Well, I mean, I'd be interested to see or to hear, you know, what ended up connecting him to the JFK crime. I mean, if he was so unhinged, then I guess it's not like outside the realm of reason that like he would shoot a cop, if he was, you know, so crazy or whatever.
Right.
I also kind of wonder just a little bit, like, you know, because like you can look at like documentation of like what defines someone as insane, like in the past.
Right. And it
there was a
doesn't
lot
really
of
match
like
up to today.
right, like there was a lot of oversimplification of things and a lot of, you know, stuff that really doesn't actually make you crazy.
Right. Yeah.
Like you could like I think that it might have been your sister or something who posted something on Facebook about like what people could be committed for in the past. I don't know if it's your sister, but I kind of feel like it was. And like the one of them was like a you could commit your wife if she was overly zealous in her religious practices.
Oh yeah, I don't even know. I don't know if Danielle posted that, but it sounds like something she would. But I do remember like reading things about that, like how you could commit your wife for like the most like ridiculous things.
Then it might be Danielle just because I feel like we both saw the same thing. That might have been your sister. But
It
anyway,
might have been.
so point being is that like, you know, obviously the 60s wasn't that long ago, but I'd be kind of interested to see like what his like diagnosis would have been like if he was evaluated like around
Today.
today's time, where I feel like
Yeah.
things might have been a little bit more precise.
Right. Yeah.
But yeah, I like, to me, I'm just kind of like, it all sounds suspicious, but like I'd want to hear the further evidence, if there is any, about what connects him specifically to JFK's assassination and not just the murder of this cop.
Okay. So, well, I do have a little bit of information on why they basically like have pinned it on him. And so he was recently hired by the Texas School Book Depository. He was working there. And apparently he was seen leaving that building like around the same time. And he was the only worker who was not accounted for in the building. So I don't know, but like there's no definitive proof, but those are the reasons that they're just like, it's him. Okay, but let me move on to the official report. And the case is still not closed. So it's an open case. Dallas had a reputation for political violence. And like I said, JFK was warned not to go. The Secret Service had rendered the motorcade route dangerous, being that the high-rise architecture of downtown Dallas, like, you know, posed a lot of threats for like, you know, sniping situations, and they felt like they were sitting ducks. And Kennedy's popularity in the city was excessively low. So these are all things that contribute, and that might have contributed to the occurrences. And so before I move on to, I actually have like conspiracies on what a lot of people think could have actually happened. But before I move on to that, I'm going to talk a little bit about the Kennedy curse. Have you heard of this?
You know, I've heard that phrase before, so I'm sure that once you explain it, I'll be like, oh yeah, that's right. But yeah, I think it might be that, if I remember correctly, it might be that Kennedys don't live past a certain age or something.
Yeah, so you're like right in it. So basically it's a series of premature deaths, accidents, and other calamities involving the members of the family.
Right. Because the Kennedys are a pretty famous family.
They're a pretty famous family, exactly. So I'm going to go through a list. Let me see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 occurrences. And there's more, but these are like the main ones that I'm just going to mention.
Right.
So in 1944, Joseph P. Kennedy Jr. died when the BQ-8 aircraft he was piloting accidentally exploded over England.
Accidentally.
1948, so that's 44.
Yeah.
48, Kathleen Kennedy died in a plane crash in France.
Okay.
1963, Patrick Bouvert Kennedy, who is the son of Kennedy, died of infant respiratory distress syndrome 2 days after his premature birth. Super sad.
What? That does sound so familiar, actually.
Yeah. So 1963, JFK was assassinated. 1968, Robert F. Kennedy, who was his brother, was shot in the Ambassador Hotel in LA on the night of his victory in the California Democratic presidential primary. He died the next day. 1984, David A. Kennedy died of a drug overdose. 97, Michael Lemoyne Kennedy died in a skiing accident. 99, JFK Jr. died when the plane he was piloting crashed into the Atlantic. 2011, Kara Kennedy died of a heart attack while exercising. 2012, Mary Richardson Kennedy died by suicide. 2019, Soiree, and I don't know how to say that, Soiree Rosen Kennedy died of a drug overdose. And 2020, Maeve Kennedy McKean disappeared with her 8-year-old son during a canoe trip in the Chesapeake Bay. Her body was found 4 days later in the water.
So, and just to go over this one more time to clarify, these are all like premature deaths. Like these are all like relatively young people.
Yes, these are all like they were not, it had nothing to do with like their age. It was all like a young death.
That's a lot.
It's a lot. So definitely something interesting happening with the Kennedy family, that is for sure. Okay, so that's the curse. We talked about the actual like happenings of his assassination. Now I'm going to share 3 conspiracy theories, and there's a lot of conspiracy theories out there as to what actually happened, but I'm just going to share 3 that I think are interesting. So the first one is the CIA conspiracy. So this conspiracy assumes that the CIA had something to do with his assassination, and an investigator found out that CIA agent David Atlee Phillips was involved with Oswald prior to the assassination. And the U.S. Army intelligence officer and National Security Agency executive assistant John M. Newman found evidence that both the CIA and FBI tampered with the files that Lee Harvey Oswald had before and after the assassination event. So, and they also withheld information that Oswald may pose a threat in Dallas.
Okay.
Thoughts?
Okay. So I feel like this is one of those things, like we've entered a realm in which it's not necessarily that I don't think something like this can happen, because I do think that there are corrupt people out there, and in like even government agencies. I 100% do believe that. That's something that, for my own peace of mind, I don't want to believe in that much. Because you like to think that the people
running the country care about
the country who is supposed to be like protecting you and protecting the country, you don't want to think that they're doing something shady.
Yeah, I totally hear you.
Might be me burying my head in the sand or whatever, but I'm just kind of like, I like not to take as much stock in that conspiracy theory, mostly because it doesn't do me any good. It doesn't make me feel better to think that way.
I totally agree with you. Like, it's not fun to think that like our government is, plotting, but the fact that like there is like hardcore evidence from like the Army intelligence and like National Secret Agency that like they tampered with Lee Harvey Oswald's files is like not painting a good picture.
No, it's not. But I will say that they're probably like, there are secrets in national security that have to remain secret, I think, for good reason. So like it could be one of those things, like if it was being tampered with, we don't know really what the purpose was. It could be something bad. It could be something that was of national security.
Yeah. I also think it could be like maybe not necessarily that they were involved with the assassination, but maybe that like they just wanted someone to pin it on, and so they tampered with it to like make Lee Harvey Oswald look guilty, which I'm more okay with that, weirdly, than I am with like the government like plotting to kill a president.
I can see why you'd say that.
But either way, it's not great.
No, it's not. It's not great.
Like reason. Okay, so that's the CIA conspiracy. The next one is the Secret Service conspiracy. And so this one assumes that his Secret Service actually plotted against him to get him killed.
What would be the motive for that?
I don't know. Difference in like who they want in office. Maybe they didn't agree with him. I don't know. But let me give you the details of like why this could be somewhat believable.
Sure.
So the House Select Committee on Assassinations declared that the Secret Service was deficient in its performance of its duties. Like that was an official statement like proposed by the committee. The president did not receive adequate protections in Dallas. The Secret Service possessed information that was not properly analyzed, investigated, or used. And the Secret Service agents in the motorcade were inadequately prepared to protect the president from a sniper. Which this does go back to like that whole comment that they made that like it was, you know, they were sitting ducks, that like it wasn't a good route. Which if they made that declaration, how come it wasn't like, how come they didn't do something about it? You know what I mean?
So my 2 cents on this one is,
I have a little bit more, but go right now.
Okay. No. You just finished then.
You want me to go first? Okay.
Yeah.
So some said that like the reason they didn't do that was because JFK wanted to keep the Secret Service like discreet and he didn't want to like make a big deal. However, like this, I don't know, like idea or like proposition is kind of like not really that valid, because apparently like riding with the car down and the reduced number of police and not having agents by the rear bumper of the car were not actually decisions made by Kennedy. Like that was like decisions made, I don't know who it was made by, but it wasn't made by Kennedy. And Abraham Bolden, a White House Secret Service detail, claimed to hear that like the Secret Service saying that they would not protect Kennedy from would-be assassins.
So my whole thing about that particular conspiracy theory, well, conspiracy theories in general, right? So
yeah,
just like all these things is like, it's really hard, I think, especially for, you know, us who weren't alive during that period of time and like have like that kind of context of just knowing what, you know, the temperature of the nation was at the time. It's kind of hard to buy into some conspiracy theories because it's like, well, what was the motive? You know, like what would be the motive for them not wanting to like protect the president? Like even if the person really did hear them say like they were going to protect him from would-be assassins, what would be the motive behind doing so, I suppose. Right. Like I think the motive of that would be important. But then also, I feel like that one is even less likely than the first one, at least in my mind, in the sense of like, you know, from what I understood about the time period and even like the time period a little bit in which we grew up, like the very, very early part of when we grew up, is like, I feel like a lot of people assumed that the world was a lot safer, or at least at that time, it kind of felt like things were a lot safer. Like, you know, there wasn't like such strenuous, you know, requirements to get on a plane. Like you could walk someone to the gate.
Yeah.
You know? So, and people didn't lock their front doors and like all this whatever. So I can easily see someone being like, even if there was like some chatter about like, oh, this might be a concern in this area, I could see it being like, well, no, let's not make a big deal out of it. Like it's going to be fine, blah, blah, blah. Like I think that there was a lot of assumptions in the past about like things being more safe than maybe they were. So I can kind of see like that sort of thing happening and like not wanting to make a big spectacle of the Secret Service and like, yeah, probably keeping them discreet because they are the Secret Service, not the in-your-face service.
Yeah, I mean, I'm with you. Like, I don't necessarily think that this is the conspiracy that I put the most weight into, but it is an interesting thought considering like that the Secret Service did say like this isn't a safe route. Like there's a lot of opportunities for snipers, and yet they like just went on with it. You know what I mean?
Right. I mean, and I can't like just go making arbitrary comments necessarily about like the policies like today as far as like campaign trail stuff goes, because obviously like I don't know anything about it. So I can't really make too many comments, but I'd kind of be interested to see like, you know, what is our current policies like protecting like, you know, those campaigning.
Yeah.
For that stuff, like, or, you know, the president who's running again, you know, and doing their own campaigning, like what kind of protection is given to them now? Because I don't see Walls the Secret Service, you know, in all the televised stuff. So what protections are they getting?
Yeah, I mean, all good questions. I mean, I'm sure that there is like protocol and like obviously us civilians, like what do we know? Exactly. But yeah, I mean, I'm with you. It's not my favorite conspiracy theory, but I'm like, it's interesting nonetheless. Okay, so I'm actually going to move into the third one, the last one that I have. And this one is the one that for me is the most like interesting. And it is the Lyndon B. Johnson conspiracy theory.
So he wanted the throne, so he
So let me get
in.
into it. So there was like a lot of, I guess, like general knowledge that LBJ disliked the Kennedys, apparently.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and so he feared that he was going to be dropped from the Democratic ticket in 1964 election. And this was later confirmed by the president's personal secretary, Evelyn Lincoln, that like they were going to drop LBJ. And so I guess like there was also other things, and I couldn't really find too much research on this, but apparently like LBJ had other like various scandals that he was trying to cover up, and like what these scandals are specifically, I don't know. There is one that I think probably like leads into this, and I'm going to talk about it in a minute, but like apparently there was like a need to cover up scandals by him. There was also a smudged partial fingerprint that was in the sniper's nest in the 6th floor of that one building that when they analyzed it, it was like most likely it belonged to Johnson's associate Malcolm Wallace. Interesting. Okay, and then also, so there's a woman named Madeline Brown, and she was supposedly the mistress of LBJ. And she also implicated him in a conspiracy to kill Kennedy. So she said that he began planning his demise as early as 1960. So like that would be like shortly after they won the election together. And it involved dozens of persons that range from like the FBI to the mafia to prominent politicians and journalists. And LBJ arrived at a social gathering the night before the assassination at the Murchison's mansion and told her in like a hushed, like whispered voice, "The Kennedys will never embarrass me again. That is no threat. That's a promise." Yeah. And then 2 more things. So then there's also a documentary that came out in 2006 called Evidence of Revision, where in addition to Brown, who talked about, you know, being his mistress and the things that he said to her, other of Johnson's associates voiced their suspicions of him in this documentary. And then when Oswald was dying, Dr. Charles Crenshaw was overseeing him apparently at the hospital, and he received a phone call from LBJ that demanded that like Oswald give a deathbed confession for the accused assassination. And that and obviously Oswald was in no condition to give a statement, so like it never ever happened, but that's speculation because there's no actual record that LBJ made that call, but that's like what the doctor claims. Thoughts?
Well, just in the, you know, basis that you gave a lot more examples, I feel like it's the most believable conspiracy theory. Because I didn't feel like any of the other two had like much by way of examples. Not that there isn't like in the known universe more examples, and maybe just like you don't have all the examples, because obviously we're only like a podcast that, you know, is listened to by our friends, like some people. It's not like
we're not a legitimate podcast with like a crew that could give me this information.
Yeah.
This is like me an hour before this doing research.
Right, exactly. I think that it's an interesting theory, especially since I wasn't aware that there was any sort of animosity between him and the Kennedys, so that's interesting. I am skeptical of anyone who pops out of the woodwork and just like, oh, I was the mistress. Here's the tell-all about this person. I'd question what their motivations are.
Yeah, totally.
That sounds like a really good way to get famous and make a buck.
Totally. And especially if like maybe they like broke it off like on not good terms, like maybe she's trying to like get revenge. So I'm with you on that. The thing that kind of gets me is like that documentary that came out with like a lot of his associates being like, oh no, like we're suspicious of him. Like that kind of like I was like, like why would a bunch of people all of a sudden be like turning on him? You know what I mean?
Right. Well, I mean, make a buck.
Yeah, I mean it's true. Like I feel like I want to watch the documentary to see like what they're saying exactly.
And then one thing, you know, obviously we don't really know what his motivations were and anything that he said or did not say, because in something that sounds kind of gossipy, I'd kind of question the validity of like what he actually said and how it was taken out of context, because I think everything, you know, if you take things out of proper context, then a lot of things can be misconstrued.
Right.
But I would say that man, I lost my train of thought for a second. What was I gonna say?
Like I will say that I don't know.
So like, you know, and I think that this might be something that, I know a lot of people who are like this, but like if you speak in hyperbole, like just
Mm-hmm.
as a general rule, like being like, oh, like just being kind of dramatic about things,
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it'd be fun for you. Like if he was like if Lyndon B. Johnson was the type of person to speak in hyperbole, if all of a sudden he got turned around, like all the things that he said, like that he didn't really mean that way, he was just being dramatic. Like it's like, I didn't actually conspire to murder someone. I was just being, hyperbolic.
Mm-hmm. 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 Yeah, I mean, like it's hard. It like sucks because you never know what's gonna happen, and if you're making jokes or like, teasing about something, and all of a sudden like something is relevant to it, it's like, oh, it doesn't look good on you. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I feel like this is a really bad example, but I'm just going to use it anyway because it's the best example I had. But like, you, for example, like when you like, if you ran into something that you found like really gross, like if you ran into like cockroach or something, it's like, ugh, I just wanted to kill myself.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, yeah. I
Something
always
that
say
you do
that.
all the time. So like, if we
Literally.
make a documentary about you later, like a bunch of people being like, oh yeah, she was telling you all the time that she wanted to kill herself.
They're like, Alex, why didn't you see the signs?
Yeah, exactly. It's just like that's taken wildly like out of the actual context.
Yeah.
Like you're truly just being hyperbolic. You
Yeah.
don't mean that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm with you. It definitely like how would you possibly know if like, you're saying maybe they did have some sort of like tension and like if he said something like they're never gonna embarrass me and I'm gonna get back at them, like and you don't actually mean anything like malicious by it. You're just kind of
And then
like angry in the
like 2
moment.
hours later he cools off and just like, all right, well, whatever.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I don't know. There's a lot to consider. And like, obviously, this case is open for a reason because who really knows what happened?
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of things to ponder over. Like, it definitely, and I know that like LBJ, like, he was the one that sent us off to the Vietnam War. Am I
Oh, I
totally
could.
wrong?
You might be.
It might be. I feel like, oh God, let me hold on.
We are not historians here.
What
I'll just say that right
happened?
now. I'm really bad when it comes to like that part of US history because I feel like, okay, here's the thing, right? So like doing history classes in school, you
Uh-huh.
always start out like when the US like was really like founded, as a country. Well, actually you really kind of start when like the span like when Columbus comes over, right? So that's like where you kind of start in the history classes, then you keep going. I feel
Mm-hmm.
like once you get to the Industrial Revolution, things kind of drop off from there. Like you kind of lightly touch on the world wars, but for the most part, you're not really getting as far as the Vietnam War in most classes, I feel.
Mm-hmm.
Or at least I didn't when I was in high school. We didn't
Right.
I never felt like we had enough time in the year to get to the Vietnam War. So I'm just like, I really don't know a lot about that actually.
Yeah, I'm really bad at like history, and just from looking at this really quick, oh yeah, yeah, he did send us off to Vietnam.
Yeah, well there you go.
Okay, well look at me. I knew something. I was gonna say though, while I'm looking at this, he so in November 29th of 1963, a commission to investigate the Kennedy assassination was created, and Johnson created a special commission chaired by Chief Justice Earl Warren to investigate the assassination. So, I mean, something to be said that he like created a commission to investigate it, but I mean, it would look bad if he didn't either way, you know what I mean? So you would
Right.
have to regardless.
And I feel like it's kind of just like one of those really dangerous things, like where, especially at the time, like you really want to find a culprit, like you really just want the case to be closed. So it's really
Yeah.
easy to just point fingers in whatever kind of direction you want.
Mm-hmm.
As far as like, oh, maybe they did it, maybe the CIA did it, maybe, LBJ did it.
Yeah, and I mean, like, the point I was gonna make originally about the whole Vietnam thing, like, I know that there was like a lot that people disagreed with, like LBJ's decisions, especially like with entering Vietnam and like dealing with all that like conflicts. And I'm just like,
Hmm.
I don't think LBJ was like a beloved president.
It doesn't kind of sound that way.
Yeah. So, I mean, not all not good things on his record, but who am I? Like I had to look up to see if it was actually Vietnam during his presidency. So, what do I actually know?
Right. Oh, that's funny. Wow, that was an interesting little thing you got me to think about. I never thought about the Kennedy assassination that hard.
I know. I was like trying to think of something that like I thought was like an interesting topic, but that I didn't think you knew about.
No, I'm not. That's not my era of history that I know a lot about. Not that I know a lot about any era of history.
I know, I was gonna be like, what area of history do you know a lot about? You're like the 2000s.
Yeah, dude. I know my lifetime.
Oh my gosh.
Kinda.
Anyway. Well, that was fun, Alex. I'm like glad we did this. I'm like excited to see like what topic you come up with next time.
Oh yeah, for sure. I have to think about that now. What shall I educate you on?
It's gonna be really funny. Like I feel like all the ones that I'm gonna do this season, all the ones you're gonna do this season are probably gonna be very like depictive of our different personality types.
Oh, absolutely.
I'm excited to see how they go.
Well, because like you have to do something that's kind of aligned with your interests, like that.
Yeah.
Like that sort of thing aligns with your interests, whereas mine are a little bit different.
Right.
Yeah. So
it'll be interesting.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Well, that's all we have for today. I hope you had fun with us in the season 3 of TRUUU Podcast. We'll see you guys next week. See ya.
Bye.